In Episode 6, Adamo and Rasheed talk to Paul Waykid, a man of authority with stories we can all relate to.
Good morning and welcome to Listen to This. And geez, we're very excited today. For Episode 6, we have our first person that we are interviewing, and he's a man of authority. He's a man who's been in the system since he was born, really. And we're lucky to having Paul Waykid. Yes. Rhymes with naked. So welcome to the program, Paul.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, really appreciate it.
Thanks. And the lovely cream of the Middle East, Rasheed, our co-host.
Excited to be part of this conversation because it's gonna get interesting today.
Fantastic. So, Paul, I'm going to paint a little bit of a picture. Well, man, I've got two men of authority here today. Two men of authority, so hopefully I get a little bit of a break.
You better watch yourself, mate.
2 Middle Eastern men too.
So Paul's been in the system. He's been in the army. He's been in the AFP. He's been in the prison system. There's a lot of themes here today. There's family life and how it's affected that. We've got some stories. We've got some prison stories. We've got things about where he's moving into the future. But before we talk about his role of authority in the army and so forth, we need to go back to the start. We need to go back to childhood. I feel like I'm in therapy. Sorry, mate. But let's talk about growing up, mate. Like what...
How can I... The best way I can explain it was a very strict upbringing. Both parents born and raised in Lebanon. Catholic family, so very strong culture upbringing in comparison to, say, a few of my friends growing up in school. So there's a big difference in comparison. So, when I used to say to people, I'm not allowed to do this. Like, for example, I'll give you, it's just a simple thing. I'm not allowed to drink soft drink, because Dad said I can't drink it. So there was that very, you do what I say and that's it, So there was a very strong, maybe, authority in that respect.
I'm Afghan, mate. I can relate to that.
Yeah. So yeah, it was difficult as a child.
Yeah.
But that's what I was used to, so it was easy. Because you just kind of adapt to things. When things are given to you, you adapt and you just kind of accept it because that's just the way it is.
Right. So there's one thing in terms of like having a father, teach you these things, but was he aggressive? Sounds like.
Yeah. My dad had, they call it that 1,000-mile stare. The stare that would,
make your chills.
Sends chills your spine.
Down your spine.
And it was a very, he was a very intimidating person. My father. You couldn't. He would look at you from the other side of the room, and you're in trouble.
So you copped it.
Yeah, I copped it, but I think it was also a respect thing too. You know what I mean? And going back to my family history, because I got a lot of family in America, all around the world, but I've got a big portion of the family in America. And I remember speaking to my dad's mother. Sorry, correction, not my dad's mother because she was too young when she passed, but my dad's sister who's in America, and they always said my dad was the black sheep of the family. You know what I mean? He didn't like authority. He was always punished by his father, and I think it kind of resonated to me, being an only son in the family. I've got an older sister and a younger sister, and then going through that life, being disciplined by my father. And then finding out later in life that he was disciplined the almost identical way. He was treated the same way. And my dad rebelled, and that black sheep,
So he didn't like authority, and you've held all the positions of authority.
Well, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny how the future pans itself out.
He just went against the whole thing, all the
100%,
things that he didn't believe in. Yeah.
Well, when I was younger, obviously you do as you're told, and you don't talk over. But as I got older, it was about finding out my truths. Finding out about what my dad was about. Because at the end of the day, people talk in the family. People talk and say certain things, but you don't you tend not to believe because you love someone so much that you want to. What's the best way to explain it? You want to not believe that it's true. You know, if someone says something about somebody, I'm one of those people who's, if I don't see it, I don't believe it. You know what I mean? That's what I've come to, that realization in my life. If someone says something's happened, well, great, I'll listen to your story, but I need to experience it, and that's where I've kind of maybe a bit different to everybody else.
Yeah. So I actually read your story because I really appreciate the notes you put together, because we do our research here at, on the program, and so your father passed away. Okay, your father passed away, and then you had another role model in your stepfather.
Yeah.
And this is a progression into roles of authority. He was in the Navy. Do you want to talk about them?
Yeah. So my dad didn't I was in a relationship. My parents separated quite young.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, I didn't clarify that.
Yeah.
But so my dad and my stepfather were together around the same time. It's only been about 6 or 7 years since my dad passed, and we're talking. Obviously, I'm a young chap. You know, I'm in my early 40s, so.
Don't get emotional.
But I'm getting older. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But you know, if you see photos,
You're tough enough. I know.
I used to have hair, but this is my choice now. So, but I guess there's a massive statistic at the moment with failed marriages and stuff like that. So when I was a kid, I got tossed between mum and dad. And I think that's a lot of the cases for a lot of people in a similar situation. And I think in these days now it's the norm.
So that relationship was. Can I ask? Or
I didn't like. Yeah. I didn't like my stepdad at the start. I hated him.
Oh, but with your natural father, the relationship with your natural father and your mother.
Well, see, at the start, Well, the relationship I had with my dad at the start was obviously I respected him because he was my father, and. Being an only son, you always, you could probably relate to the, I'm proud of you kind of mentality, because you don't want to disappoint. We grew up, I don't know, maybe similar to you, with a restaurant. Growing up in the restaurant industry. So, for my younger years growing up, it was all hospitality, and I can't stand the industry. But I did it because that was my family. And I remember I used to work behind the bar, and I used to make soft drinks and for the customers, and I couldn't even see over the bloody counter. I was that small. So I learnt hard real quickly because, growing up as a kid, all my friends were doing things, but I wasn't allowed to do things because I was at the shop with my family. So.
You know how to make coffee now.
I do, so, yeah. Coffee's a big thing for me. So
his coffee is the best. He's got a machine. His machine is worth probably about $5,000 now.
I think in episode 2 we might have to do a home call and get some coffee, mate.
Absolutely. I actually had a coffee before I came, and Rasheed gave me another cup, so I'm double dosed of caffeine now. So.
Yeah, well, we want you to be pumped up, mate, for this podcast.
So with there's a progression here. So there's this role of authority. There's the army, and you're saying your stepfather was in the Navy. You wanted to go into that, but then you got held up in about year 2000, as I was reading. And then you've kind of gone into the army. Is it parachuting? Parachuting
regiment, 3rd Battalion.
Jumping out of planes
for a living. Yes, stupid of myself.
How many?
Like that.
It's scary.
Yeah. Like you do. Like if I was to kind of go, I'll nut it down real quick. But it's pretty much a requirement once you're at the school of parachute, which was in I think Nowra at the time in New South Wales. You do a course, and you have to do 7 jumps. Yep. And that qualifies you to get your wings. And if you don't meet that requirement, then you don't get the wings. So there's a bit of tradition behind it, and they talk about the beret, the thing that you put on your head. And they got the green beret, which is your infantry beret, but then you've got your burgundy one, which is only given once you got your para wings. Okay. So it was a big achievement in the battalion. You'd see guys walking around with green berets, and you're like, he's just a pleb, but a jube, whatever you want to call him. But
so you're living in the barracks first,
at the start.
Are you teaching people how to jump out of planes, or what are you doing?
No.
What are you?
No,
so that's what you learn in the military,
so
and then you've got a job.
Yeah, so you do your recruit course, which is anyone that's done the military. It's standard across the board, irrespective of corps. Yeah. you do Kapuka, which is your standard, introduction to soldiering. And then once you do that, you go to your course-specific IET course, so initial deployment training. And in my case, it was infantry, so I went to obviously Singleton for my training. You do your training there, and there's certain gateways that you have to pass, which is part of the process. So you still have to meet requirements. So you pass all that, and then once you get that, they send you to your battalion. Depending, we have quite a few battalions around Australia. Predominantly now, most of them are up north.
So you moved around a lot.
Absolutely, yeah. So moving around was probably the hardest thing about being in the military. But then I also love that part as well because, a move is a good change sometimes. You get stagnant and you get complacent in one location for a long time. You don't really kind of venture out. And
but
I love
kind
that
of
part.
affected your personal life too.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It my personal life. I believe that my marriage kind of suffered from that. You know what I mean?
We'll get to family in a second.
Sure.
We'll get, but okay. So I'm trying to picture this. So you're jumping out of planes. You're moving around. You got your family.
I can't even fix my roof tiles.
Yeah, I had to fucking fix.
It's too scary getting up there.
That's why you asked me to fix your aircon. Remember?
Yeah, I remember
No,
that.
I was in the roof like a idiot. Anyway, so you're moving around and you're making friends along the way as well.
100%. I've still got them to this day.
Okay, so I'm just trying to picture this because there's a lot of wars going around the world. 2005, 2015, around. Okay, so you're working, and then all your mates are going off and they're deployed. So let's talk about that. I mean, this is a little bit touchy. We're not going to talk about specifics, but your mates are getting deployed, and then you get the call that.
Lucky you didn't get deployed to Afghanistan.
No, they're
I actually tried to go. There was a...
Are you serious?
Literally, because,
Lucky you didn't.
The funny thing about it is you can train someone, and really, when you think about it, anyone in the military, they train you to kill. Like, I don't think you realise how... the severity of it. It's not...
Because they tell you to eliminate the target.
100%.
You don't see people, you see a target.
It's an order.
Right?
So either you or them, it's not going to be you. Yeah.
You get an order and you follow orders. It's a ranking structure. Hence why I'm so regimental in my life now. But going to what, we were talking about, the whole...
you lose mates over the time.
100%, yeah. We've had mates to, lost mates to, suicide. Due to mental health, and we've got mates who have been deployed and died on deployments. Even one of my mates who passed, he died on a peacekeeping mission.
So all this stuff on the news that you watch on Channel 9, you know all of them.
Well, majority of the people I served with, there was a handful of people that did pass.
And that's when you get together and you meet, you talk, and
it's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Like even to this day, people talk about it. The military made me who I am today.
That's
right. I mean? It shaped me, and I never thought that it would take me where it took me. But
in our previous podcast, we talked about how certain events in your life, you think that this is this misery and calamity is actually, it's in a way it shapes you. These events shape your life. The person who Paul is today is probably as a result of those events in your life.
100%.
Yeah. So welcoming today Paul Waked again, a man of authority who's had a very colourful life, probably more colourful than the t-shirt I'm wearing. But let's move on to, okay, so you've lost mates, you're in the army, you're travelling, you've got, I was just reading a statistic just today on the number one profession and job where it takes a toll on people, and it's in law enforcement, police, because of the stress. I think it's stress, 50 to 75%. So, okay, let's talk about the family toll, right? Now, this might just get a bit restless, but, you got kids, you're moving around, understand, just reading in your notes that you're in Queensland, and then you got your family home base here, and then there's obviously a problem there that your partner at the time wanted to stay in Queensland. You've had kids, growing up, and your kids need you. I mean, I can't imagine not being there. When the kids wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
You're the father of the year, mate.
No. Look, I feel lucky, but it hasn't gone that way for you. So let's talk about that. Like, tell me.
I guess you just get a thick skin. I guess over time, with. I think for me, I never envisioned, that being a Catholic, and that was quite.
So you separated 2015.
Yeah, roughly around then. Yeah, I think it was 2013. I think it was. But I never envisioned being separated. Because being Catholic and brought up the way you did, to death do you part, and I was a very religious person because my family was. I went through the whole, baptism, first communion, and the whole thing, going to church regularly. I've got family members who still, go to church in the choir, and because obviously being Lebanese, whether and our Catholic,
it's a taboo, isn't it?
Like, it's we're the original Maronites, so which is obviously in Coburg. So we've got the Lady of Lebanon there in Coburg, so Our Lady of Lebanon. So kind of going back to the whole family stuff, it was hard because the day that I went through such pain, it was almost a shock. When someone goes in shock and you don't believe it.
So what happened that day?
So obviously our relationship was up and down, and
like everyone's.
And you.
Sorry.
I wish I could high five you guys, but yeah.
Don't worry, my wife won't make it past 3 minutes of the podcast, so she won't see that.
Yeah, but I think the hardest part for me was accepting that it happened. Because you don't expect something like that.
Mate, I live my life on the edge, mate. It can happen any day.
So, I was reading you worked a 13-hour day. This annoys me. And you come home and the house is empty.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about it, because
don't get them all emotional. You got to take it easy, mate.
there's a lot of blokes out there. You're not the only one. I mean, how did you feel? Tell me.
I know if you asked me that question 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because it was quite an emotional time. But again, like I said, you build a thick skin, and it was hard. I came home, and every night I kissed my kids when I was home, because obviously I was in the military, so I did a lot of deployments out bush. Meaning that would spend lengths of time outside, away from the home environment. So. In retrospect to the relationship as a whole, it was kind of something that she expected and I expected, because I was always away. And I guess that's where we'll delve further into it. But I left, the military because of that moving around, and that grounding that some people need. Sometimes you need to stick to a place so that, there's, your kids can adapt, because the last thing you want to do is move your kids from school to school or from state to state, because, and sometimes it works for couples and sometimes it doesn't. In my circumstances, it didn't. So
there was a marriage breakdown. You've come back to Melbourne. She stayed up there.
Yep.
And then, which leads into the next. This might be a little bit touchy, so tell me to shut up.
I was going to say something. If you keep doing this podcast, you might come to an empty house one day.
No, my wife. I'm getting my wife on board. She's actually saying.
You reckon?
Yeah, she is. If I'm still doing it in 3 months, she'll be telling me what to do. Don't worry. She wants to see the longevity. They want to see.
Fair enough.
But this leads me into the next, and just tell me to. No,
that's fine.
So.
I've been told to shut up, so I'm going to shut up. Okay.
And there's a lot of blokes that this happens to, where there's a separation, and then for whatever reason. Now, let me just get this straight. You never laid a hand on your woman?
It's like, I know it doesn't paint a good picture. If normally an answer would be no, but it's not. How can I explain it? I was rough with my boys growing up, and when I say rough, like a WWF, the wrestling.
Yeah.
We used to play tag team. There was 2 older boys, and the youngest one used to be my partner, and he was the youngest one, obviously, my son Benjamin. But James and Cameron, James being the eldest, Cameron being the middle, we used to play, a muck around, and my ex-wife got involved, and she got in the mix as well, and it was just this is how we used to do things. We used to have a little play area.
Yeah, but it's play fighting.
Yeah, but you know, again, this is where we'll probably get to it.
Yeah.
You know, there were times where, you know, she would cop a bruise on her ankle or a leg or something like that, because that was what we were doing at the time. And no, I didn't beat my wife up, and no, I didn't physically lay a hand on her per se as domestic violence comes into the.
You know,
into
that was like in a game of, you know.
Yeah, but I think that the scary part about it was going through that whole process. You know, there was allegations made and photos taken. I'll probably, if you want me to get into it later, I can talk about, you know, doctored photos, you know, by dates and stuff like that when we're going through the separation process.
So it got a little bit ugly.
Yeah. It got pretty ugly. Like I said, you know, like I know I didn't answer it before, but coming home that day to that empty house, you know, reading a letter from her lawyer and a letter from her. Actually, the lawyer letter took me, and I think this is probably shock. You know, it took me over 3 hours to read this 3-page letter. You know, because I couldn't get my head around what was going on, you know, and I kept going into the kids' bedroom and there was no kids there, you know, no cot, you know, and that was hard, you know what I mean?
Now, we're not denying, look, domestic violence is real, and there's a lot of guys out there, and it is a real subject. But then on the other hand,
There's false allegations.
yeah, there's false. Now, we're
There's
not
two
here
sides,
to.
there's two sides of the story.
Yeah,
all the
we're
time.
not here to air any bullshit. This is all the truth, facts, and we're not here to air any dirty laundry or slant anyone, but we're just going on the facts, yeah? So, well, just... So, the last 10 years have been... Look, here's my advice.
He's got a lot of stories from.
Now, I just want to talk about this, you know, your kids now are 17, 18.
Yeah, 18, 17,
Right?
and 14.
And kids are not stupid.
They're
right?
not.
They're not stupid. So that they're going to get to an age, and this is looking to the future on a positive note, they're going to want to find out who their dad is. And the truth always comes out. So look, couple of little things here. The truth will always come out, and you can still move forward. There's brightness, there's hope, yeah?
Yep.
But if there is domestic violence and you are seeking help, we're going to leave some links in the description, and you can get help. Any man who hits a woman is a dog. Any woman that hits a man is a dog.
He's a bitch.
It doesn't matter. We're all equal now. We've all got the equal. It's look, we're not equal, but it's just a no-go zone. That's just
Apparently
my 2
there's
cents.
more violence committed against men.
Than
women.
Look, there is
You know
another
that?
thing about psychological.
Actually, that's the stats. That's what the stats
Well,
show.
you know, I was in prison, so I can justify that. You know, I was there voluntarily, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Psychological, you know, attacks
Yep.
can be worse than a bruise in the eye or a broken leg, because that mental health is it's a big subject. Now let's get on to we progress on to, you know, you're in the prison system.
Yeah.
So you're an officer in your
Queensland.
time?
So I started in Queensland, but like I said, I think a lot of the reason I went into what I did was the process, because remember it was the military.
Yep.
And the military kind of transition. And I'm not going back, but I'm just trying to
that's
paint
right.
a
Picture,
timeline here, because the prison was the last thing on, when you look at that time frame, the prisons was the last thing that I kind of jumped into. And that was only there by mistake, really, when you think about it. I never had intentions of joining the prison. And it was just there to fill a void until I returned back to what I loved most, which was working in the AFB. So, you know, leaving the military, we had a lot of guys, you know, going, I'm not, like, again, trying to paint this timeline, but we've got a lot of guys that were getting deployed, and then they're coming back with, you know, PSD, and, you know, and then, you know, their partners were going with other guys that weren't deployed, you know what I mean? And there was this big issue in the military. So it was that a lot of that separation. That happened a lot.
They're the guys that went, that saw a lot of things that came back with issues, but your issues were more the family.
So the family thing for me was when we obviously separated. The intention was, you know, at the time I was in the AFP, so when we left the military,
you must have seen a lot of shit.
I have, yeah. I've seen a lot of stuff.
I've got a question for you. Yeah,
Death,
definitely.
drugs.
Yeah.
So you were in the prison, like, I mean, so you made friends with with some prisoners.
I
not friends, or you.
I wouldn't say friends because it's not someone I'm going to have a beer with at the end of the week when he gets released. But no.
And you see on news
Now I've got a. I need to ask Paul a question.
Yes.
It's about prison. Okay. Now tell me about that story about that chronic masturbator.
No.
You're just gonna tell us about that. Please. It's okay. It's a podcast. It's all right.
Yeah,
Go
just
for it.
Chronic
Chronic masturbator.
all the time.
Yeah. Listen to Paul.
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't.
Just say it.
You want me to-
It's all right. Yeah, go get into it, man.
Not at the breakfast table.
No.
I've had breakfast in the morning, so it's all right. But
Yeah, listen to this, man. Listen to this.
Yeah, I'll tell you the story, but there's obviously other stories.
Yeah.
But a lot of prisoners, obviously, in that incarceration process, are limited in their access to a lot of things. So in this particular circumstance, I won't mention the prison or the prison's name or the location.
Yeah.
But in this particular time, this prisoner was in a what we used to call an obs cell or an observation cell. So it was like a padded cell. And they're very limited. So they've got, we call it a smock, which is it can't be teared. It's to prevent self-harm and to prevent possible suicide or attempted suicide. So the material that they use is non-root proof, so they can't do anything to themselves. Hence why it's an ob cell. There's a camera in the cell, and at this particular location I was working at, we had a monitor in the officer station, and then each ob cell has a camera, so we sit there and we observe, and then obviously based on whatever the assessment by the psychologist or whatever clinical doctors have made an assessment on this person, they'll say, okay, this person requires a time frame of observation. So in this particular case, this guy had 30-minute obs, so every 30 minutes we will report. But we've got access to this camera in the cell that obviously if they were to do anything, we can call a code, and the code then will have the relevant parties attend. So in this situation, we're sitting there, and there was actually about 3 or 4 of us at this officer station, and this guy had, and there used to be like because they've got nothing inside the cell, and the only access they have, and there was a TV in this particular setup, and it was behind a perspex, like a perspex screen.
Yeah.
So there was a TV, and then in time he saw a female on the screen. It didn't matter, and I know this sounds weird, but whether it was a child or an adult, this guy would get his old fella out, and because he's in a smock, remember, so he's got nothing on, and this guy
They just have a
You're
tug.
trying to commit suicide by just jerking off.
I'm trying to picture. I'm trying to get.
Oh,
you
we're
the picture.
picturing. Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
just imagine a nude bloke
Having a tug. Yeah.
hung like a donkey. He was. and
Donkey Kong.
He would sit there because he had no access to anything. You know what I mean? So when he saw something, and I think it's that whole killing time. You don't realise these guys are, and in this particular situation,
They're
this
blokes,
guy,
mate, yeah.
but this guy, he obviously had some mental issues, hence why he was in the observation cell. But you remember, these guys are locked down for 23 hours a day, and they have a 1 hour run out. And that 1 hour run out is that vitamin D that we love so much. When you go outside and you get that, that sun ray.
Yeah.
These guys get 1 hour outside, and the rest of it's locked down for 23 hours. So they get very limited outside time. So, think of a caged monkey, or a caged dog. You cage it for so long, and then one day it retaliates when it gets an opportunity, because it's like a build-up of, But anyway, so this particular guy.
Build up of what exactly?
Well, in this particular guy was a build-up of semen, but this guy used to sit
Hence
there.
the Navy.
He would sit there and he would play with his old fella, and to the point where he, released his little men.
Wow.
And he would, I've been told, I can't I've got no scientific research on what semen is, but apparently it's high in protein, and so yeah. But anyway,
It's not supposed to be.
It is high in protein, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so what but anyway, so he would thank you for coming, so you anyway.
So he was self-harming, basically.
Self-pleasuring, I think. It's probably the words to use, but he would then ejaculate, and he would consume every bit of semen. That
Oh
he,
my! Are you serious?
Yeah, lick his fingers and pull down the shaft and So we used
Wow.
to sit there, and
my.
Sometimes we would
I
have.
gotta get out
like-
more.
Yeah, well, and this again, the unit was full of these extremely entertaining characters. Is the best way I can explain it. It was a mental health unit, and so you've got people talking about things.
And it's a different life in there. Like, you got to
It
have
is.
them have them on side. You can't just ignore them because you'll probably get, it probably wouldn't turn out the best way. But I've had a cousin who,
You might get splashed.
No, but you know what? The funny thing is though. Listen to this. The funny thing is though, because it was in an enclosed area, there was a smell. You could smell it.
oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So you would be sitting. So like, we were getting shit money. Like the hourly
Was he
rate.
drinking orange juice?
Well,
pineapple juice?
but
Or pineapple juice, whatever that is.
it just had a very strong smell.
Don't drink pineapple
you
juice
know,
and
like,
ejaculate.
It's like even because they're shitters too. Remember, their shitters are in their cells.
Yeah.
So like even when they do a shit, you smell it. So it's she's giving me
Look, we know what sperm smells like,
yeah,
mate. We're
but
blokes.
some guys have got better than others from what I've been told.
Mate,
but,
don't get all weird, mate.
but yeah. So anyway, so that story was obviously a guy self pleasuring and consuming all the remnants that came out of his old fella.
so
So that's the story. Yeah.
At
so
least he didn't waste it.
well, no, he didn't, and he was getting a lot of protein in the process. So. But yeah, and that's normal. And I think, and he would do it 5, 6, 7 times a day. So there wasn't much rest in between it. So you think about the longer you do it, the longer it takes. And sometimes he would sit there for half an hour, and like sometimes you'd sit there and go, and like we got to the point where we felt like we used to put a piece of paper over the TV screen. There was a monitor.
To not see it.
Well, because there was female officers that worked in the unit as well. So like it's not appropriate. You know what I mean? So they've got a duty of care as well. But then they don't have to be. They don't have to observe those type of things as well. So, but yeah, again,
honest,
Didn't
more.
like it. The female officer.
you're sick, mate.
On a more serious note, so you must have seen.
You're sick.
You must have seen stabbings and knives.
Yeah,
and
we
You must have seen a lot of that.
yeah, like
Was your life ever in jeopardy?
one thing I learned in the 10 years I worked in the prisons over 2 states. I worked in Queensland and Victoria in the judicial system. One thing I always learned, it was actually given to me by a pretty old officer that had been in the job over 30 years, and he gave me some pretty good advice that I took, and he always said that you give respect to gain respect. So
It doesn't matter who you are.
it doesn't matter who you are,
Yeah.
So I've taken it in my life to this day. You give everyone the benefit of the doubt. If you're being disrespected, then it goes both ways. So if you want to disrespect me, then it's going to be disrespectful on the backhand. So that was where I found common ground in what I did. Was you give respect to gain respect, and they're human beings. They've committed an offence. Some of them are not even guilty of an offence.
You've seen a guy get raped.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I'll get to that.
Hang on.
Yeah.
I just said a bit of a.
Yeah,
I just
sorry.
got to hold something.
Yeah, but so like it's
Sorry.
Is it
I
hurting?
was holding my ass.
that won't prevent it. It hurts more. So
Oh,
that's only coming from what I've
You can't
been
clinch
told,
it, mate. You just gotta let it loose.
oh, that's that's sick.
and like I said, it's a valuable thing I learned. So it's that you give respect to gain respect, and again, they're human beings. You've got to treat them like human beings.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I even worked in the protection prison, one of the place I worked, and you had offenders, predominantly in their offences to minors under the age of 16. Whether it was boy or girl, and these guys have committed some heinous crimes, towards children being a protect. But they've also got dodgy cops and dodgy politicians.
You just don't know.
So the protection prison's not just pedophiles, but I think it was like 70%, population pedophiles. And like being a father myself with kids, you'd sit there and read their case file, and they've got transcripts of their or you'd sit there and you'd be the case officer for that person, and you would sit down and go, how you going, and how's he, and what this guy's done.
You still have to act normal.
You have to
job,
be
because
professional.
again,
job.
this is what I was talking about, treating people with respect, even though he's committed a heinous crime, and probably no one, even on your listeners, would sit there and go, that's okay, because it's not. Hence why we have facilities for people like that. And I think that was where the scary part about was when you sit there and you're reading this stuff, and then you're sitting there and you're telling this guy, how's everything going? Are you speaking to your family? Do you need anything, any educational stuff that you want to do whilst incarcerated? And, it's hard because you sit there and they get 3 hot meals a day and, they've got a roof over
paying
their
for it,
head.
yeah.
That's exactly right. And I
And
think,
the heinous crimes that they've done, there's just, and about it, and you can't really do anything about it. Obviously, you got to have professional will.
I've been fortunate, I've been lucky because I've been able to work in every aspect of the prison system. So talking from low security all the way to maximum management units, women prisons.
Let's say when you're dealing with this
youth detention.
let's say a pedophile, how do you contain your emotions? Do you, as a father, do you feel a bit? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the person that you're dealing with and you're talking to?
Again, you've got to be professional. It's your job, and if you can't be professional and you can't get your head around what you're doing, then you're probably in the wrong profession. Yeah. And like I said, the prison system, depending on where you work, it's not a long-term career for some people because you're observing these type of things. And the time that I spent in Queensland, in the prison systems in Queensland, are a lot worse than Victoria. Victoria very needy to the prisoners' needs, whereas in Queensland there are a lot more. This is the way it's going to go, and that's it. We'll give you one choice, and that's it. And if you don't like it, we'll physically make you like it. And that's the way they were in Queensland. Whether it's changed in that time is another question. But I felt the level of assaults, the level of things that I saw were more prevalent in Queensland than they were in Victoria. So.
Which leads me to the last question. So we're moving into the light now. We've had a role where we've moved around. There's a lot of issues. Family. We've spoken about your job, but let's talk about right now. Right, you're working for Metro, the rails.
Yep.
You've since met your soulmate, which is great,
yes,
and you've got a young little daughter.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's great.
Yeah, it's, how can I explain? You don't ever expect that it's going to be this way because like going from when I was through the separation, I went through a lot of failed relationships, and that search is the most difficult thing, and a lot of single men out there can relate to that.
But you found someone that accepts you for who you are.
It's funny. There's a bit of story. There's a funny story behind it, but my wife now. It was funny because we were on the dating, on the apps.
I've never had a chance to go on the apps.
Yeah, well,
I met my wife when these apps started, so I don't even know what they look like.
Well, see, my ex-wife we met through immediate friends, like friends that knew friends, and the old school days, you introduce and that to me was a norm. And then obviously married for 10 years and 3 kids, and then you
try new ways.
Then you come out of that, and then you realise that. It's not like it used to be. And then, I had a bit of fun, I went overseas and did all that kind of stuff. But then you come back and then people, and I know me in particular, companionship is so important. Having someone there, and it's not necessarily about, I don't know, it's someone to talk to, because I've gone through a lot, and I struggled. Obviously we didn't harp too much on the process of leaving, what happened after I left and stuff, because it probably need another episode for that story. But it was hard because then I got to a point where I was like, okay, where do I go from here? And I kind of really gave up on finding my soulmate. And in 12 months prior, obviously in this relationship that I had with my wife, 12 months prior, she liked a photo on my profile. And I was dating another girl, and I guess a lot of the relationships I divulged into was...
How many did you have on the go?
Doesn't matter.
She loved the bald head. She loved. Did you have hair then?
Yeah, I did actually. I did. Yeah, like it's this. Like I can grow my hair. You can see I've probably got a bit of a bit of bald spots in certain spots, but it looks people know me as this.
But she fell in love with your soul, you.
Yeah, but see, the funny thing is, like, I always got into relationships. I know we talk about, finding your soulmate, but, I think, and this is testament to who I am as a person. I think if you're a good person, over time, you do the right thing.
Yeah,
Obviously, we didn't harp too much on domestic violence, but, people can say what they want to say about you. That's how the system works. And
But
they
you
can
know
say,
who you are.
And exactly right. If you're true to who you are, and you keep face,
So much fucking fake news out there.
mate, there's heaps. And like I
Don't
said,
fucking lie. Just tell the truth.
So Adam, you reckon
tell
you don't
the
have a
truth,
secret
mate.
Tinder profile, huh? Do you have a secret
No,
Tinder
not at the moment.
so going back to that, so a lot of the relationships I jumped into were broken people, and I know
You
it sounds
attracted that, yeah.
I attracted it because of my working life. I love fixing things. I've always been a technical person. My dad was a very technical person. That's probably the only thing I can take away from my dad. Everything else was not the best. He wasn't a very good role model. Obviously, my stepfather was that role model who taught me everything about why I am and who I am today. Saving and education and all that kind of stuff. But going back to that whole liking of that profile, I met this girl who was, I think they call AA, alcohol anonymous.
Anonymous,
So she was a substance abuser.
Oh, yeah.
But she had been clean for like 3 or 4 years, and lovely girl. But then had that mental issue, where I had to go to programs and 2-3 times a week, and if I didn't, I would lapse into a state that would cause arguments. And and I felt like being in that situation, I was trying to fix her and accept that she's that the way she is, but then it just didn't work. And that's predominantly a lot of my relationships were like that.
It was breaking you in the process.
Yeah, you find something good in somebody, and you try to make it great. Yeah. And in that situation, and all
you're
my
not in the
relationships,
same.
yeah,
You're not. It's
a
just
vicious
not.
cycle.
You're there. They're not bad people. It's just
They're not, no.
It's just not the right time. It's just not the right energy.
That's exactly right. And you got to realise too, and a lot of these, and I think the statistics like 2 out of 3 that separate. When you go through a relationship, and I know you can't relate to it because you've had your wife that whole time, and I'm guessing you're in the same boat as well, Rasheed.
Yeah.
But you tend to find faults in people, and you almost become to a point where you can't date. Because you're looking. Because remember, every person you date, there's something about them that you don't want from the last partner.
Yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
So
That makes it
so when I was married, there was traits that I saw in her that I didn't want in the next girl I dated.
Yeah.
And it was this vicious cycle that when you date someone, from one after another, there was all these little things that made it so hard to accept. And you get to the point where you just prefer your own time and not being in a relationship because it was too much of a stress or a headache. But anyway, so she liked my photo. And the girl I was with, she met a guy as well, and they broke up. And the girl I was with, we broke up, and I went back on, kept one photo, which is actually a prison photo. I was in uniform, so we were like a man in uniform.
Yeah.
And it was, and I had it as my only profile. I had a lot of hair then too, so I looked, had the, I looked
Bold as the new sexy.
yeah,
mate.
bold as the new sexy. I just need a beard now, I'll be all right. But it was. I went back online and she saw a photo that she had liked earlier and liked again, and we started chatting, and the rest is history.
And you've been with her a few years now.
Yeah, we've been together 5 years now.
And what's her name?
Melissa.
Melissa.
I was gifted with my wife Melissa, and she never thought she'd get married and never thought she'd have kids because of her age. She's a couple of years younger than I am. I think same age as my sister actually, which is
The other day, Paul and I were having a conversation. I'm like, women, huh? You can't live with them. You can't live without them. He goes, no, I can't live with my wife.
No, I did, and I did for a very long time. I did for a very long time live without him, and I did love my own company. But again, there was many times, obviously, where I went on dates, and I know you want to wrap this up.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway,
Look, Paul, mate, this has been a great therapy. It's been great.
Hasn't it?
And
I'm sorry I couldn't share too many more. I've got a
it's
lot more
okay.
stories, so if you guys want to invite me back,
2.0.
if you
want
for another
3.0.
podcast,
I'll
mate.
bring out some stories.
We'd just like to thank Paul Waked today for his stories
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
of courage, and there's a lot of themes in this chat, and it just makes you think. One day about life and friendships, and yeah, I'm going to go away with some things. You're always thinking as males, so there's a lot of themes: men's health, family relationships, purpose, finding purpose in life. So we just like to present Paul.
We've got a little gift for you.
We've got a little gift.
I hope.
We heard how much you love Toblerone there.
Thanks, guys.
And
there's one more.
There's one more here. I don't
There's
know if you
one
drink
more.
wine,
Thanks,
but
guys. Really
this is a Western Australian Margaret River wine. It's
Is that good?
Blackstone. I got a
Is
two
it
for one.
decent?
It is
I mean,
decent,
Paul has got a very expensive taste.
mate. This would be great with the
It's
nice
it's
steak.
a cab save. So,
It
wow.
is,
Thanks, guys. Really
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
it. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. Very kind. And look, in the description, in the links, you'll get links to men's health, for domestic violence. There's a few things we're going to have there. And just on a final note, Paul,
Yes.
is there anything? This is unexpected. I just had it at the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say to your 17 and 18-year-old in Queensland on a final note?
You know what? If
You want to say something?
If they,
Because this is
yeah, if they
He gets
if
a-
they
he gets-
do if they do somehow see this, Dad's always loved you. I don't want to talk too much about it because I'll get emotional, but I think about you guys every day. I talk about you guys every day. I work with Rasheed, and I talk about my kids because I do. I've got 4 kids, and I've got 3 boys and a girl. You have a half sister now, which is great, and I've put out the olive branch and sent emails to you guys, to your mum, stating that you've got a sister.
they will come.
And
They will come.
and the day will come because I was told one thing.
And we'll be there, and you'll be
Yeah.
on the show.
And I will, and I'll let you know, guys.
Yeah.
But there was a someone did say something to me once, and it kind of resonated with me a lot. My boys, whether they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, it doesn't matter. I accept both. But I've got 3 boys, so the chance of them finding a female partner is 1 in 3 chances. But what I'm trying to get at is the women are always good with their men. Like you talk about daughters are very close to their fathers. It's just the way it is. And someone said to me that if they're going to date a girl, they're always going to ask, what's going on with your father? Why isn't there a relationship with your dad? It's hard because I love them and they're my blood, and I never wanted this to be the way it is, but life is a journey, and
Unfortunately, yeah.
and but it's just I love them dearly and I think about them daily. Yeah.
So watch this space. We might follow up with things in the future. People might want to find out what's happening with Paul. On that note, thank you, Rasheed, the cream of the Middle East as well. Mate, that's the first time I didn't hear you talk like you.
I didn't say
I love
nothing
you
because you
I
told me
fucking
to
love
shut
you.
up.
I fucking love you, mate, like a brother. But you must have learned
I'm
more
not
than
going to
us.
be this
today.
quiet that I was.
We
in
need
this
more
podcast,
special
okay?
guests. So, everyone, Khodafis,
Khudafis,
thank you.
Take care. Ciao.
And-
Allah Mark.
Allah.